Alright, bitches, so we're here for episode 31 of Dragon Ball Super. This episode is called To Lord Zuno Ask About the Location of the Super Dragon Balls. So it looks like we're getting a little bit more plots and not quite so much recap this time. So this episode picks up with Jaco flying in space, headed towards, meeting up with Bulma. And he seems to be getting frustrated that, Bulma is basically forcing him to come, meet with her, even though he was, fucking around on his day off. And she even threatened him with, getting Vegeta to go attack the Galactic headquarters. And Jaco's real frustrated with that. The Galactic Patrol headquarters, they sent out like an APB on this. It's like a Toad Man. His name is Burp Man. It's ridiculous. But he's a serial eaten runner. So, they're putting out an APB on him. And that becomes important later on. But then Jaco is so upset with, how Bulma has treated him that he, starts firing his laser cannon. And it looks like he accidentally destroys a natural monument, in the galaxy. And the Galactic Patrol, they contact him and they're like, oh shit, this monument was just destroyed. Patrolman Jaco, tell us what happened. And Jaco says, it was Burtman who did it. I'm chasing after him. And they're like, okay. So it's like, damn. So this boy Burtman just got pinned with a serious beef right here. It's like, holy shit, Dragon Ball Super, are they touching on, some touchy subjects right now with police, brutality type of shit and how they could just, pin it on normal people? I wonder. But anyway. The next scene has Jaco, he's already on Earth and he's, still upset about, destroying the natural monument. When Goku actually walks in the room at that moment, and it's interesting because this is something that they're going to such lengths to point out that I gotta imagine this is gonna factor in later on. But Goku mentions that he can't sense Kibito Kai at all. And he says, oh, I wonder if he's taking a nap and has his energy turned way down. But this seems to be implying to me that something might have happened to him. So I wonder, could they possibly, is this an early setup for the next big villain? Because I know that the tournament, that's going to go off without a hitch. But I'm not too sure about, where the story arc is going to take us after the tournament with Beerus and Champa has concluded. So this could be, the earliest sign, a little bit of foreshadowing of what could come afterwards. Now, after this, Bulma wants Jaco to take her to the center of the universe, to work kind of with the Super Dragon Balls and stuff. And Jaco explains how difficult that is. And Bulma kind of basically just says, okay, take me to the Galactic Patrol headquarters, and I'm sure there'll be someone there who can take me. And Jaco says, we only patrol the Milky Way, that's not really possible. But he does say that there is a planet nearby that has a certain someone on it who knows everything and can answer any question. So Bulma agrees to go there with Jaco instead of going to the center of the universe. Now, this then leads to a two-way, a funny scene and kind of a cute scene where Bulma, she's on the spaceship, they're ready to take off, and Vegeta's kind of standing there and just goes oi, don't try anything funny with my wife. And it's oh shit, look at that, Vegeta. And Jaco's just he kind of is whatever. And Bulma stands over him and knocks him out. It's damn, Bulma is very, very violent. But Bulma and Jaco, they take off. And then it's interesting because Goku and Vegeta, they have a little bit of dialogue where Goku's kind of oh, both of our wives are very, assertive. And Vegeta says, it's our Saiyan blood. Saiyan women are all very strong-willed like that. And it's funny because Piccolo is standing there in the background, and he does the common Piccolo, no way, and he's that's why. It's a funny little scene right there. Piccolo always kills me, man. Alright, so then we see Bulma and Jaco, they're flying towards, Zuno's planet or whatever. And another one of these scenes happens. Okay, guys? Now follow me here. I've mentioned about, I guess these would be plot holes. I've mentioned several times over the past couple episodes that they seem to be creating a lot of plot holes, a lot of bullshit with, the canon. So we're treated to a flashback. This is supposed to be, of course, when Bulma and Jaco first met. And we see young Bulma flying Jaco's spaceship while he's freaking out. And Jaco is standing with Bulma's new sister, who we've just been introduced to. Her name is Tights. Now, Bulma's flying this ship, and she looks to be a small child, maybe 4 or 5, implying that her and Jaco have known each other for a long time. Now, here's why that's a fucking problem. If you guys remember, just after the team, the Z Fighters, just after they beat Vegeta and Nappa, and, Vegeta flies off in his ship, just after Krillin's about to kill him, and Goku telepathically tells him, don't kill Vegeta, show him that we're better, Earthlings are not like this, even though he killed a lot of our friends. And, Master Roshi and Chi-Chi and them come pick them up in the plane, and Goku's, crippled from his injuries from Great Ape Vegeta, and they're in the spaceship, and, Krillin mentions, this is the first time that, it's kind of talked about that Piccolo is from Namek, and they kind of talk about how maybe a way to wish back, Yamcha, Tien, Piccolo, Chaozu would be if they went to planet Namek and there was a set of Dragon Balls there. And Bulma is going on and on and on about how hard it's going to be, even if we use, a spaceship, it wouldn't work. And then, it's a long scene. They talk to King Kai, and it's like, where the planet is, that would take, thousands of years to get there. And it's only once they find the one-person Saiyan pod that Nappa left behind that they decide they have a chance to get to Namek. But what you're telling me is that Jaco was there years before with a spaceship, so why the fuck during that scene did Bulma not just go, we could call Jaco, tell him what's going on, and he'll fucking take us? See, they created another fucking problem with this shit. They have got to stop doing this. They got to stop, fucking around with shit that happened before, and they need to just move forward. Jaco did not need to know Bulma for years and years and years. That was unnecessary. His first appearance and where he met everyone very easily could have still been the Resurrection of Frieza arc. He just happened to land at Bulma's house. I would have accepted that. That would have been fine. Whatever. But, now we have to create more plot holes. It's just tumbling and spiraling out of control at this point. Damn. Damn. Alright, so they arrive at Zuno's, mansion, house, planet, whatever you want to say. And they find out that in order to actually talk to Zuno, you actually have to make an appointment 7 years in advance because of how booked it is. But just at that moment, Burp Man, the toad that, we get a flash of at the beginning of the episode, actually shows up for his appointment that he made 7 years ago. And, you see Jaco's kind of caught in between because he had blamed the destruction of the natural monument on Burp Man. So if he arrests Burp Man here, his superiors will find out that he's the one who destroyed it. But, if he just walks away, Bulma is, has actually been very nice to him. I guess he doesn't want to let Bulma down. Plus, he doesn't want to let Burp Man off the hook. And he thinks, maybe if I take Burp Man down, arrest him, we can actually get to ask a question to Zuno in Burp Man's stead. So what happens is Jaco decides to arrest Burp Man. And Burp Man kind of pulls a gun out on one of Zuno's attendants. And, we see a scene of Jaco beating the shit out of Burp Man, showing off that, when not compared to, Goku or Frieza or Vegeta or characters like that, Jaco actually seems like he's pretty tough and he's, got some interesting things going on. Now, the attendant is very thankful that Jaco helped him because, when Jaco goes to attack Burtman, Burtman pulled the gun out and stuff, so Jaco basically saved the guy. So because of that, they're able to get to ask Zuno questions. And it's explained that, when you meet Zuno, you have to, give him a kiss on the cheek, and then he'll answer questions. And he's like this big, it's very hard to describe him. He's like a big, fat, I don't know what it is about, like, in Dragon Ball, they like making, like, kind of big, fat characters, but Jaco kisses him on the cheek, and he decides to get, Zuno says he'll give Jaco one question. So Jaco, I don't know, he's fucking around. He decides to ask what Bulma's bust size is, and Zuno mentions, what Bulma's bust size is, and that her, her boobs have started to sag, so, tough break, Bulma, tough break. But after Bulma kisses Zuno on the cheek, he actually gives her 3 questions, even though, as he says, she's middle-aged and not his type. Now, Bulma immediately fucks up by asking, I'm this gorgeous, but I only get 2 more questions than a guy. And it's like, oh, that counts as a question. So then she asks for Zuno to tell her everything he knows about the Super Dragon Balls. And he begins, going on about, the history of the Super Dragon Balls and all this, and how they're created by the dragon god Zalama in year 41, according to the divine calendar. And he starts going on and on about how, like the stars are just a refraction of light so that they're visible from any angle. But the big piece of info that he reveals is that the 7 Super Dragon Balls are actually spread about both Universe 6 and 7, which does make sense now, because remember we saw Champa flying through, Universe 7, going past Frieza's henchman's ship, and that's why he was in Universe 7, was because he was collecting Super Dragon Balls. So Beerus and Bulma's theory of there being Super Dragon Balls in Universe 6 and 7 is false. And of course, it's, when you, make the wish to the Super Dragon Balls, the Divine Dragon comes out, and, there is an interesting line where it's, whatever impossible dream you have can be answered, and there's like almost like a little pun that you have to say to get the dragon to come out. And Bulma asks a question, like she fucks up again, where she says like, are the Dragon Balls really spread out between the 2 universes? And they're like, oh, there's the last question. And then she, asks if she has to say the stupid, kind of joke towards the, the dragon to get him to come out. But, she already fucked up and asked her last question, so that's it. Now, the next scene is Bulma and Jaco back on Earth, and she's sort of discussing it with Vegeta. And Vegeta, mentions that, that is valuable info, because it means Champa has been sneaking around the universe looking for the Dragon Balls. And Bulma mentions, like, yeah, Beerus is going to be pissed off. And so at this point, Jaco goes to leave, and he mentions that he's going to take an extra vacation day to watch the fights on the day, when the tournament happens in a couple days. And, like, he goes to leave, and it's real funny, because after he leaves, Vegeta's kind of like, hey, he didn't try anything funny, did he? And Bulma's kind of like, funny? What do you mean? And then it cuts over to Goku, and Goku goes, Bulma, is it true that your boobs are sagging? And she, like, turns around and screams, like, damn you, Jaco, at his ship as he's flying away. It's like a funny little way for the episode to end. And then you do see Jaco for a second, and he kind of mentions, like, damn, I should have asked, Zuno-sama how I could, get away with destroying the natural monument. But and the next episode preview is showing what looks to be a lot of the new characters, a lot of the new competitors for Team 6, or Team Universe 6. So it looks like the next episode, we're actually finally going to start getting into this tournament then. Okay, good, I'm hyped. Hopefully there's no more new plot holes next time, though. Shit!